During Advent this year, our theme has been signs and wonders. We've talked about the signs of the needs of the world, the signs of God's coming in various ways to human beings and to human life. Some of these signs are seen, some of them are felt. And in tonight's story, in the Christmas story, we hear signs of God's coming. They're heard rather than seen, like the words of John the Baptist or the angel's annunciation. The same is still true. We hear sounds of the Christmas season, voices that seem to be silent the rest of the year. We hear light-hearted, expectant laughter of children. We had over a half dozen children at the 6 o'clock service this evening. They couldn't be still or quiet as they came in. The excitement was palpable in their bodies and in their voices. We hear their laughter and hear their joy. At this time of year, we hear the jingling of Christmas bells that call us to remember those in need. And we hear, as we have sung tonight and will continue to sing, beloved carols that are simple enough for us to learn as children, and yet profound enough to challenge us for a lifetime. We exchange greetings with each other. Most of us will probably speak on the phone tomorrow to someone that we rarely speak to. We will hear greetings of peace and joy and love that may give us a twinkling of hope. Like those in the time before Jesus, we also hear disturbing news. News that is capable of turning us into cynics if we aren't careful. And so I ask us tonight, do you hear what I hear? Most horrifically this year, we hear gunshots. These candles are for the 28 people whose lives were lost in Connecticut. We hear shouts across the chasm of growing economic inequality, the size of those in unemployment lines lengthening. Do you hear? We can hear, if we're aware, the paranoid cries of meth addicts, the quiet, disturbing grief of those who have lost loved ones and are facing their first Christmas without them. I hear silent sighs of resignation from those who are dreading Christmas because it accentuates their loneliness. Do you hear? These signs call for relief, for saving, if you will, for something to be made whole out of brokenness. The biblical stories surrounding the birth of Jesus draw us close to hear the spiritual sounds of that first Christmas. Angels throughout the events leading up to the birth of Jesus repeatedly announce their greetings. First to Zechariah and Elizabeth, who will give birth to John the Baptist, then to Joseph, then to Mary, then to the shepherds in the field. And their greeting was the same. It wasn't, hey, you're about to receive a Messiah. Their greeting was one that our world still longs for. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I bring you good news. How we need to hear that. We need to hear it in our own hearts. We need to hear it in the world. Do not be afraid. I bring you good news. That's the sound of this season. All of these, Zechariah and Elizabeth, Joseph, Mary, the angels, heard the subtle message of the Spirit, of divine messengers. You know, we really don't know if any words were spoken aloud or not. But they heard nonetheless. They heard the spiritual message. They heard beyond the everyday with the ears of their spirits. Most of us probably know this Christmas song that I'm going to quote. What we don't know is that it was written as an anthem of peace, during another turbulent time in our nation's history, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The man who wrote said this, said the night wind to the little lamb, "Do you see what I see? Way up in the sky, little lamb. Not the star, the missiles. Do you see what I see? A star dancing in the night with a tail as big as a kite." Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, "Do you hear what I hear ringing through the sky, shepherd boy? A song, high above the tree, with a voice as big as the sea." The sounds have two meanings, if we have ears to hear. Many years ago, when the telegraph was the primary and fastest method of communication, a young man named Joel applied for a job as a Morse code operator. He answered an ad in the newspaper and went to the location specified in the advertisement. And when he arrived, he entered a large, busy outer office, noisy with footsteps, voices, shuffling papers, and of course the sounds of the telegraph in the background. A sign on the receptionist's desk instructed job applicants to take a form and fill it out, slide it under the clerk's window, and when summoned, to enter the inner office. So Joel did what the sign said. He took the form, filled it out, glanced around curiously at the 7 other applicants seated in the waiting area. He then got up, crossed the room to the door of the inner office, and just walked right in. Well, all the other applicants kind of perked up, wondering what was going on. Then they assumed that Joel had simply made a mistake and that someone would send him back pretty soon. Within a few minutes, however, the employer escorted Joel out of the office and announced to the other applicants, "Thank you very much for coming. The job has been filled." The other applicants grumbled to each other, and one spoke up and said, Wait just a minute, I don't understand. He was the last to come in. We never got a chance, yet he got the job. That's hardly fair, is it?" The boss cupped his ear and said, "Do you hear what I hear ringing through this room, young man? A call high above the din." The telegraph was repeatedly clicking out the words, "If you understand this message, then come right in, the job is yours." The message was there. It was there in plain hearing for all to hear. But Joel had tuned in. He had sifted through the distracting, mundane sounds of the office so that he could hear the sounds that made all the difference. Do you hear what I hear? Do we hear in this world only sounds of despair? Do we hear only the sounds of our rapidly beating, fearful hearts? Or do you hear what we all have the opportunity to hear? And so we're invited, all of us, each of us, to listen deeply this Christmas night, to listen with our spiritual ears. A song high above the tree, with a voice as big as the sea. Said the King to the people everywhere, "Listen to what I say. A child sleeping in the night will bring us goodness and light." In the UCC, you know that we say God is still speaking. But it can be hard sometimes to hear that still small voice when we're accustomed to on-demand messages and sound bites. We may not listen with our spiritual ears every day. It's hard to hear when we're so accustomed to concrete concepts of reality. If it's real, then I can comprehend it with my 5 senses. And it can be hard to hear words of grace, words of goodness, in the midst of a world in the grips of war and fear and economic polarization. And so I would say, it takes sensitive ears of our hearts to hear Christ's coming in 2012. Sensitive ears, attentive ears, perhaps even disciplined ears. Ears attuned to wonder and to the unexpected. Who would have expected? Who would have expected the Messiah to come as a child? And yet there, in the midst of similar situations to our world now, in the midst of poverty and oppression and captivity, demands from governments, broken hearts and faint spirits, they found good news. And so can we. The good news is this: then and now, God has not given up on the earth. God offers new beginnings as fresh as each day. As God is with us, Emmanuel, in ever new ways. How silently that wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the blessings of the heavens. No ear may hear his coming, but in this world of sin and fear and numbness and division and hopelessness, where meek souls, where ready souls receive him still, the dear Christ enters in. Listen. Do you hear? The faint cry of a baby, one from 2,000 years ago, or perhaps one born this night to bring hope yet again. Songs of angels, or maybe a whisper in your own heart that there's hope for you, for us, for this world. The love that is born tonight is love enough to change us and cure us and hold us. May it be so. Amen. This evening, they couldn't be still or quiet as they came in. The excitement was palpable in their bodies and in their voices. We hear their laughter and hear their joy. At this time of year, we hear the jingling of Christmas bells that call us to remember. The same is still true. We hear sounds of the Christmas season, voices that seem to be silent the rest of the year. We hear light-hearted, expectant laughter of children. We had over a half dozen children at the 6 o'clock service. During Advent this year, our theme has been signs and wonders. We've talked about the signs of the needs of the world, the signs of God's coming in various ways to human beings and to human life. Some of these signs are seen, some of them are felt. And in tonight's story, in the Christmas story, we hear signs of God's coming. They're heard rather than seen, like the words of John the Baptist or the angel's annunciation.